Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex. And with 2018 quickly coming to a close, I thought it would be fun to go back and look at all of the updates that we got this year in 2018 and briefly summarize them and then briefly discuss what was good about them so that we can answer the question, possibly as a community, what was the best update of 2018. So I'm going to be leaving a link down below in the description for you to engage in a poll, and I'll show you the poll at the end of the video, and then just watch the rest of this video so you can be reminded of all of the updates of 2018 and what they brought and what was good about them, and then we can vote together. If you want to discuss more of it, keep in mind that I am back live streaming on twitch.tv, and I'm pretty much on every day in Discord, so you should check those two places out if you can't get enough discussion about Marvel Future Fight, or you just want to kick it and hang out with people who are pretty cool, I think. Anyways, starting off the list, the very first update of 2018, and you can use this update as a bit of a clue, a bit of a hint as to when the next update of the one that we're next up for is due, which is kind of a weird mindfuck. But basically, in 2019, in less than a week, we should be getting the first sneak peek for the next update 4.7. So that's super exciting. But I don't want to talk about things that I don't actually know because I don't actually work at Netmarble. What I do know is that update 3.7 was pretty small. It was right after the Ultimates update, and I feel as though Netmarble was just trying to not make any mistakes whatsoever. So we only got two new characters, X-23 and Adam Warlock. Both characters felt kind of clunky, kind of unfinished. And then we got three new uniforms. These three new uniforms have stood the test of time, and while Falcon's uniform is not as good as Satana's or Punisher's, both Satana and Punisher uniforms were fantastic reworks for these characters and really brought them up to a semi-competitive level without making them game-breaking, but definitely made both of these characters usable. Falcon still needs some love. Hopefully with Marvel Avengers Endgame, he will finally get the kind of meta-ish uniform, Winter Soldier-ish uniform that he deserves. The other changes that we got to this update that were really huge for the game was the Dimension Rift refresh, which I know people have been asking for years on the Reddit, so it was nice to finally see that as a quality of life change. They also added some metrics for the more veteran players to see their progress and to see kind of cool bar graphs of how many tier 2s they have, how many uniforms they have. There's some other stuff to upgrading native tier 2s, and they added X genes in the lab processor, which will come in handy later on, and then they made some other changes. But overall, a pretty small update with a small impact on the game. The only other notable thing from this update was that they introduced the event battle, which would come into play again when Luna Snow was introduced. And then the Luna Snow update, which is not really quite an update, it happened right after Black Panther, would double dip on the event battle, which was kind of like a Marvel Contest of Champions type thing that we saw again for Crescent, and I frankly love that game mode, and I wish we had it pretty much permanently in the game, but in a more difficult fashion. The next major update we got was 3.8, and this was the Black Panther MCU tie-in. This one was quite a bit larger and much more ambitious than the previous update. We got three new characters. We got Shuri, Ulysses Claw, and Killmonger. Shuri had a huge and continues to have a huge impact in the game. Ulysses Claw is a serviceable, free-to-play villain for Shadowland and Blast type. And then Killmonger is kind of garbage, but you have to pay for him, so that's good, right? Not really. They also added uniforms for Shuri, Black Panther, and Killmonger. But the first two uniforms are very, very good and definitely moved these characters even higher. It pretty much rewrote the history for Black Panther, which is fantastic. And then Killmonger's uniform is basically only known as the uniform you get to get a CTP, which is cool. The Legendary Battle, which was the second Legendary Battle to be introduced after Ragnarok, made a huge shift, both in terms of what you were getting out of them and also in terms of the cost, because Thor Ragnarok's Legendary Battle was free and you got free CTPs essentially. You just had to invest in the uniforms, but with Black Panthers you needed to also invest in the extreme mode, which wasn't available for Thor Ragnarok, so they kind of changed up the model a bit. This one was a bit of a painful experience at first because the pack was originally priced at 5,500 crystals, which for most players was just absurdly expensive because you still needed to invest another 1,000 few crystals to get the uniforms associated with the unlockable items. So it was literally upwards of 10,000 crystals to actually unlock everything, which just wasn't very worth it. And the fact that the uniform was already legendary, Black Panther's uniform, basically means that you don't have any flexibility if you only have a few hundred crystals or 1,000 crystals and you just want his uniform at legendary, at normal instead of legendary. They have since permanently reduced the cost to 3,300, which is much more reasonable, especially considering you get a tier 2 ticket, but this was interesting. This was also the first time in a long time that Netmarble had actually introduced difficult content with the extreme mode of Black Panther's legendary battle. Now, they have since nerfed some of the stages, but the hunt was especially difficult at first because it was off-typing for Black Panther. He was a combat type fighting a blast type, and the extreme mode, which required you to beat the stage very quickly and beat the stage without taking much damage, actually proved very difficult. But they have since nerfed it and changed his typing to speed, which now gives Black Panther a huge advantage. They also added daily trivia, which is a nice little piece of fluff for the game. They added some new boosters that's basically meaningless except for the daily boost point, which I actually love as a monthly subscription. They added some UI changes, most notably to seeing when your stats are over the max, which is actually extremely helpful for min-maxing and kind of optimizing your characters for ABX or other game modes. And then they added some stuff to the character pages and the Villain Siege stuff, and then they just made some other changes. I'm going to skip over the Luna Snow update because it was super, super small. We basically just got Luna Snow. We got the event battle for her. That was all. The next major update in March at the end was 3.9, and this one was the first of 2 dedicated X-Men updates. This one brought us Magic, Emma Frost, Angel, and Colossus. And this one, if you compare it to the one we got more recently with Gambit, is quite similar. We got multiple paywall characters, 1 free-to-play character. Well, we didn't get any in the newer Gambit one, but we got 1 less character. And overall, it was an update that was very low on gameplay mechanics and kind of any kind of changes there, but was heavy on just characters and character building. We got 2 new cosmetic uniforms for Wolverine and Cyclops, basically not really adding any changes to them, very low impact, except for Cyclops in a small way. And then they added the new Dimension Rift. Basically, Angel was the only and is still kind of the only impactful character from this update. Emma Frost is better now with the uniform, but still expensive. But he's free and he's extremely meta relevant because of the leadership. So it was nice to see Netmarble throw a bone there for all the free-to-play players. They also made some changes to the actual gameplay mechanics of Alliance Battle Extreme, which was nice to see them at least kind of trying. I don't think it's going far enough. I don't think it's doing enough, but it is more than doing nothing. It is better than doing nothing. And then they had a new faction battle, which wasn't actually new. They just kind of copied and pasted, but it did give you some free Colossus bios. They made some changes to the UI with the bio subscription and the Exchange subscription. They, of course, introduced another page here for Emma Frost to join Adam Warlock. They added this splash page. They allowed us to change Awakened ISOs, which is actually a really nice feature and does kind of increase the value of 6-star ISO and also increases the value of getting Awakened Chaotic ISOs, especially if they have bad stats, because you can change them. They added some additional login bonuses for newer players, which is nice to kind of keep them up, push them and catch them up to existing players. And then they also, I believe, did they start stacking the, no, this was not the update where they started stacking the tickets, the rank up tickets, but they added some other stuff to the team up bonuses to more actively and quickly set up teams for Shadowland. The next major update, and probably the one that the majority of you are going to choose as their favorite, I'm not trying to influence you, I'm just guessing, is update 4.0. This was the 3-year anniversary update, and this brought us, of course, Infinity War. This was a massive update in both scale and kind of widespread changes. This brought so many new things. I mean, 10 new uniforms that basically redefined 9 out of 10 characters, Groot probably being the only one that didn't see a huge facelift. We had the introduction of World Boss Ultimate, which completely changed this game mode. Still waiting for the 10 entrances per day instead of 5. Please, Netmarble, please double our number of World Boss attempts per day. That would double my CCF per day. So instead of getting 2 per day, I'll get 4 CCF per day. So this was actually huge. This was actually fantastic. Of a challenging, difficult game mode that rewarded you. It doesn't reward you too much better for playing at the high levels, but still, there is some personal challenge to be had. In addition to that, they also introduced the Tier 3 advancement and all the materials that come along with that, Captain America's Tier 3 advancement, and the search for potential for a bunch of other characters, like the ones that got uniforms. So there was a lot of big shifts going on in the meta, both for characters and for existing and new game modes. And then, of course, the Tier 3. We also had the Infinity War Legendary Battle, which I thought was pretty cool, but apparently you guys don't think is very good. The actual rewards are probably one of the worst because there are no super awesome CTPs except for Refinement, which is the bad one, the egg. So this was a bit disappointing on the reward side, but I do think that the actual legendary battles for Infinity War are super fun. They added some additional changes or additional items to purchase. They made a bunch of changes to the UI, which were beautiful, and I think have really streamlined the game a lot. They've changed some stuff about Uru as well, and they added some amplification, so you can more easily kind of pre-optimize your characters. So that was big. And then they followed up Update 4 with Update 4.1, which was basically Infinity War Part 1, Part 2, which basically just tried to go almost as far as the first part. So instead of 10 uniforms, we got 8 new uniforms, also extremely meta redefining for all of these characters. Every single one of these characters went from 0 to hero, if not higher in the case of someone like War Machine. Basically, the only character that was relevant before they got this uniform was probably Doctor Strange, and in a small way, Scarlet Witch, but it pales in comparison to how strong these characters are because of these uniforms. We got 2 new Tier 3s, which at the time we thought were going to be super powerful, but as the time has gone on, they've steadily become less and less relevant. Spider-Man and Iron Man, sorry guys, they definitely should have had higher stat boosts compared to Captain America, especially since they came one right after the other. We got 2 new World Boss Ultimates, which is fantastic. It's double the amount of content that we got from the last one. They got some big changes to the Shield Lab, which introduced the Warp Device, which introduced the Dimension Tokens and the new item shop, and being able to purchase different items for tokens or for gold that we could never purchase before, like hidden tickets and 4-star obelisks. It also introduced a non-RNG way to get premium cards and CTPs. Although it's very expensive, over 6,000 crystals, it is completely non-RNG once you can randomly get the item from the mission shop. So you do have to spend gold before that, but you're not actually rolling crystals and risking those more valuable currencies before knowing what you're going to get. But you technically get less for your investment on average. But in general, the Shield Lab changes were fantastic. They also made some changes to the more competitive players for things like Alliance Battle, and they added chain amplification for Uru. And this was the update where they added these stackable items for tickets so that it would improve your inventory management simulator, which is very exciting. And then they added some other stuff about potential to make it easier to see, and they threw a bunch of old uniforms in for gold instead of crystals, which is pretty nice. The next update after that, and this is probably the update that most people are going to say is the worst update, but I think it was just bad or not as well received because it had to compete with those Infinity War updates, which were so insanely popular and just groundbreaking in terms of the character reworks, that it basically reworked 18 characters, which is unheard of in Marvel Future Fight history for 2 updates back to back. But this was update 4.2, blaze it. This was Ant-Man and the Wasp MCU tie-in. We got 3 forgettable characters. All 3 of these characters we thought were going to have an impact, myself especially, and they basically don't have any impact nowadays. The uniforms are definitely more impactful than we thought at the time, so it's a bit of a flip-flop. We thought the uniforms were bad and the characters were good. Turns out it was the other way around, especially for Giant Man and Wasp, and Giant Man's being the one that ties in most best for the Legendary Battle. The Legendary Battle is one that I think not too many people are hyped about, but it is the one that gave us the CTP selector with the cheaper, more free-to-play friendly uniform, with Giant Man Ultron Pym being a universal villain, which is super flexible for Shadowland, and being only 750 crystals. We also got a new World Boss Ultimate, which is awesome, and we got the Alliance Raid. I want to take a moment here to just say Alliance Raid is so fun for like 2.5 seconds per day. I would love if this game mode kind of took the boss's HP and multiplied it by 10 or multiplied it by 50. They could multiply it by 100 and allow us to invite 2 members of our alliance in to actually play an alliance raid game mode. It could be like Giant Boss Raid, but instead of having 9 characters, you have 3, 1 for each player involved. I would honestly really love that, and I think a lot of people would. I think this game mode has the right formula. It's just not using the right integers or the right valuables in the formula, so when you hit the equal sign, you get this really garbage number at the end. And they do need to rework this, but it's honestly a really great start. And then we got some other stuff with check-in stuff for alliances, some UI improvements to the Shield Lab from before, and some other minor UI improvements to things like uniforms and checking out the skill previews of skill changes. After that, we got update 4.3. This is another big X-Men update, but this is centered around, of course, Deadpool and his Epic Quest. So this was a huge spike in popularity, back up close to, maybe not rivaling, but close to the Infinity War update hype. And this saw an extremely meta-redefining character with Deadpool. Phantom X and Domino are not as impactful. Psylocke is still very powerful, and then, of course, we have Strife. So from a character perspective, this may be one of the most impactful updates after Infinity War with the tier 3s. Even for Cable, his changes to Extreme Alliance Battle have been fantastic and huge and really notable. Even Colossus is making some waves in Alliance Tournament. The Epic Quest, of course, brought in tons of amazing dialogue and new items and new missions and dungeons and kind of locations, which is always super fun. New tier 3, new level 70 potential. And then we had big changes to Extreme Alliance Battle, introducing a brand new week, which we're still kind of having a headache over because some of the days are pretty brutal, like Universal Villain and Speed Villain days and stuff like that. So it's kind of good and bad, but hey, they're trying, which I think is the theme for a lot of these updates and is actually fantastic. We had some other changes to the UI with Claim All and with Uru, but then otherwise it was a pretty UI-filled change that kind of accompanies a massive content push with the Epic Quest. Update 4.4, which followed Deadpool, was the Infinity Warps update. This one was definitely anticipated to be a bad update from a lot of players, but a lot of players, myself included, were surprised. All of the Infinity Warps update characters are very fun to play. Even Arachnite with the Heroic Quest, you don't feel too bad about having him in the end. Ghost Panther, although he does put regular Black Panther and especially Ghost Rider to shame, is a super amazing character, looks cool, fun to play, and super valuable, albeit, not free-to-play friendly. Iron Hammer is fantastic, and even Weapon Hex is pretty cool with the kind of teamwork buffs and the heals that she gives the allies, and the amazing kind of space animations that she has. All 3 uniforms introduced are pretty valuable for the individual characters, kind of making them relevant again, especially for Quicksilver. Beyond that, we got Black Panther's Tier 3, probably one of the less hyped Tier 3s since the announcement back in April for Captain America, but still a welcome addition for players that were fans of his. We also had the introduction of new content in Heroic Quests. While not super well explained, and it wasn't really super well received by the community because of the fact that we had to discover 28 days later, basically by the next update, that, oh yeah, you got to pay 750 crystals again if you want to play this game mode. Kind of a shitty experience to have revealed to you a month later. I think it could have been communicated up front to players, and I think Netmarble could have avoided all of the backlash by just giving everyone one free refresh after the first initial one for Arachnite, which would basically guarantee that you would get Tier 2 Arachnite if you spent 750 crystals rather than 1,500, and then that would make people much more receptive to the next Heroic Quest hero, because we knew there was another one coming eventually, and a few updates down the road were right in White Fox. Now White Fox and that Heroic Quest has definitely changed and improved on the formula of this Heroic Quest, but I do genuinely like this game mode. I do think it's nice. It's a mini epic quest, and although it can disrupt your daily routine personally, I think that all of the additional dialogue, all of the additional story kind of features, and the focus specifically on one character is really nice, and I think it definitely suits a game like this from an artistic kind of creative perspective. Along with that, we got Thanos World Boss Ultimate, which is the kind of pinnacle of difficult 1v1 gameplay, so that's fantastic. We got the introduction of uniform collections, which I think the rewards are garbage for, but the visuals, again, are fantastic. So it's kind of Netmarble's problem. Everything looks nice, but there's no kind of substance behind it in terms of what you get for having all of the nice things completely maxed out. But hey, at least they're trying in a way to give us stuff for free, sort of, maybe. And then they added the loyalty points to basically give people who are spending money more free things for their money. And then we had some changes to the UI and to the kind of quality of life for Shadowland and Villain Siege, and Alliance Raid and Uniform XP and Daily Mission Challenge Acquisition and Searching for Potential. Lots of quality of life changes, I know. Update 4.5, one of the last updates of this year. We saw Sentinel, Gambit, and Nightcrawler. This one was quite poorly received because of the complete lack of free-to-play characters in the game being introduced. But in hindsight, Nightcrawler and Sentinel are kind of forgettable characters, but Gambit has been the absolute powerhouse of this update. In hindsight, and we're just kind of waiting with bated breath for the moment that he gets a uniform to completely explode. Magneto Tier 3 was a welcome addition and a pretty fun character. All 4 uniforms were very impactful for the individual characters and did make them all more relevant again, which is what we're looking for with uniforms for that investment. And then we got Giant Boss Raid. So this is the other huge content push that we've seen from Netmarble in 2018 to go along with things like Event Battle, the continuation of Legendary Battle, the new World Boss Ultimates, the new Epic Quest, and I'm very impressed to see them working so hard to make new game content for us. However, there were some effects, or there were some kind of unintended consequences and kind of weaknesses of the game mode, particularly the connectivity issues and the rewards. They just weren't worth our time, but that was going to be remedied very soon, which does make this in hindsight, a very fantastic update. In addition to this, we also got the introduction of Enhancement Type, which is tied to Giant Boss Raid, which does give pretty much every character in the game something new to build on. So even if you are at the end game, or if you're just a newer player looking to solely invest in one character, you have extra things to do to make that Barbie super perfect. Beyond that, we had some new purchases in the game. We had some new UI and kind of quality of life changes to autoplay and Alliance Conquest. We had also the Alliance support feature being updated, and we had some other things with Tier 3 animations for the actual advancement, and then the showing off of what items you get from World Boss Ultimate, which is actually kind of really important. The basically last update of this year has been the original character update, the introduction of Crescent and Io, Morgan Le Fay, and White Fox, Hyperion upgrades, and then the crazy uniforms to Sharon Rogers and Luna Snow. This update has generally been received well, albeit with a bit of mixed reactions to some of the characters, namely the pre-rework Luna Snow and Crescent and Io being quite disappointing. Morgan Le Fay was also a bit of a surprise because while her damage is low, she is free, but she wasn't technically free if you refer to the original patch notes. So there's a bit of oddness going on there, and we're kind of left wondering, did they nerf her just before releasing her because they made her free? We'll maybe never know, I'm not sure, but hey, at least she's got really, really cool animations. We also got the Into the Spider-Verse uniform for Miles Morales, so I really do have to thank Netmarble for that one. They did go above and beyond in a way and brought us something from a non-MCU related movie, which is always a pleasure. Hyperion is one of the only characters this year to actually have a dedicated rework for them rather than just being a uniform, kind of implicitly implying that's the rework. Now, do I want to see more of these? I don't know. The fact that it took a year for us to get one character to be reworked in terms of their base stats and base kit, base passives, is pretty sad. And if that's the speed at which Netmarble works, I would much rather them never do Hyperion again and just work on uniforms and make those the way that we upgrade characters. If we can't get these in a timely fashion, at least we can get amazing uniforms. So I frankly just hope for more amazing uniforms to come out, a la Infinity War, but for all of the forgotten characters that are garbage right now. I'm talking your Gamoras, your Draxes, your Lincoln Campbells, your MODOKs. There's like 100 characters I can name. Vision. There's too many, but all of those characters in 2019 absolutely need uniforms like Luna Snow, like Miles Morales, like Winter Soldier, etc. We got the Tier 3 advancement for Sharon Rogers. We got the full rework to Hyperion. We got the buffs to Giant Boss Raid in addition to UI changes and quality of life changes for Giant Boss Raid. So really fantastic work on Netmarble's part. Clap, clap, clap. We got the new Heroic Quest, which kind of fixed some of the clunkiness of the previous 4 Heroic Quests. Again, improving on their mistakes and fixing their kind of weaknesses or flaws month after month. Basically, the fastest possible turnaround for a company to do that. I'm extremely impressed with the last 3 updates that Netmarble has released. Last 4 updates if you count the Luna Snow one that I'm going to briefly discuss. And I just have to take a second to say, damn, baby, you fine. And then the rest of the update was just things like the new special mission pack that gives us the CTP of Destruction, the new terrible half-month purchase, the special support, which needs to be slashed to half the price or a third of the price, or needs to be like quadrupled in the value. And then we got some other UI stuff, some new uniform collections that no one's going to have because no one wants to mythic these old uniforms. And then some new upgrade changes to obelisks and more UI quality of life changes to things like Shadowland and collecting energy. The very last one we got for this year that includes all the Christmas stuff that we've already experienced is the Luna Snow uniform rework and Tier 3 advancement opportunity, whatever you want to call it. Again, responding to the criticisms, responding to the fair reaction of the community, and giving us a balanced response that addresses what we're saying and lets us know that they're listening. So I do have to say, I do want to kind of sneak in at the end of this video, thank you to Netmarble for the way that they've wrapped up 2018. Just compare, for a second, I'm going to get a little bit corny with you guys, just compare how awful the communication was at the end of 2017. They released the Ultimates updates. Everybody flipped their shit, myself included, and they basically went radio silent for weeks and then tweeted something, and then Bill Roseman tweeted something, and then they went silent for another week or two, and then we got the update for Adam Warlock and X-23, and then it was still weeks or months until they actually addressed the Ultimates in an actual post on the website. So compare that, literally months of silence, to hey, we messed up something on the last update, boom, we fixed it. Hey, next update, we missed something, something's not good enough, it's not worth your crystals, boom, we fixed it for free, bang. So yeah, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed Marvel Future Fight in 2018. I know I did. Cheers, and here's to an even better 2019. Here's the update poll. You can vote multiple times, so keep that in mind. Don't click on all of them unless you're being a dick. Just pick, I would say, your top 2 or your top 3 updates that you think deserve to be on the list, and then maybe we can revisit this at the end of 2018 during my New Year's Eve live stream on Twitch or something like that. So let me know what you guys think. Hit me up on Twitch and Discord. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.